Peter saw something moving in the distance. He knew he needed to be careful. There had been reports of predators in the area. Peter moved closer to see if it was the deer he was looking for. Then something else caught his attention. He saw the deer, but the deer was carrying a baby. Peter turned pale. He had never seen this before in his life. He had to ensure the baby was fine, however. There was one huge problem. Peter decided to take a slow approach. All kinds of questions and concerns popped into his head. Peter slowly approached the deer from behind. The deer had just put down the baby on the ground, then the deer turned around. At first, Peter thought the deer did not notice him, but then he saw the demeanor of the deer change. This wasn't good at all. Peter felt his heart bouncing inside of his chest. He had to stand completely still. One wrong move, and this could be his end. Then the deer reacted. The deer grabbed the baby instead of lunging toward Peter. He quickly ran away. Peter tried to see where it was going, but it was too fast. He had to quickly inform his fellow rangers to prepare a rescue party for the baby. But there was one problem. His fellow rangers did not believe Peter at all. Peter was desperate for help, but did not seem to give it up. He insisted that he had seen the deer with a baby. Peter decided he would take matters into his own hands. He had to call the police. Peter had called the police. His fellow rangers all told him to let it go. They all thought Peter was going crazy and seeing things. Peter refused to listen. He had told the police what was going on. They immediately came with every available officer in the area. The first officers on the scene arrived within minutes. They took Peter's call very seriously. More backup would arrive soon. Then, Peter's boss told the police officers to come inside his office. When they came out, they ignored Peter and went straight into the forest. More police officers quickly arrived. They told Peter to stay put. They seemed pretty angry. Peter had no idea what was going on. What had his boss told these officers? When Peter confronted him, he told Peter to sit down and wait. He would be questioned soon. Peter was confused. The officers came back within a few minutes. Peter was surprised. They surely did not search the entire forest within minutes. Peter was questioned about the deer he had supposedly seen. They also asked him about the baby. Peter knew what he had seen, and nobody seemed to take him seriously. He had to get to the bottom of this. The police told Peter they would leave soon and that they did not find this funny. Peter broke down. Peter was forbidden to leave the office, and his boss still wanted to talk to him. Peter was suspended. He could not work as a ranger anymore, his boss told him. Peter did feel like the world was against him. His boss and fellow rangers believed something truly horrible was happening with Peter, that he saw things due to traumatic events in his life. They then tried to get Peter to go to therapy. He had just lost his baby with his wife. That is why no one believed him. Peter was determined to find out the truth. He wasn't allowed to go into the forest anymore. Peter decided he would go to the forest early in the morning. He just needed to do one more thing before he could go. He went over to his best friend Jacob, a fellow ranger. He was surprised to see Peter. He had heard what had happened. Peter explained the whole story to him. They had to get to the forest to rescue the baby. Jacob was skeptical. He did not want to join. Then Peter broke down. Jacob told Peter he would go with him. This could have been a disastrous decision. When they finally arrived at the spot Peter had seen the deer, Jacob spotted something. They had indeed found black deer tracks. Jacob started to believe that Peter had at least seen the deer. He was still doubtful about the baby. After following the deer's path, Jacob suddenly lost track. Out of nowhere, they heard a roar. Jacob froze. It was really close. Peter was now sure they were in the territory of the deer. Jacob did not want to move any closer to the deer. He urged Peter to actually call for backup, but Peter refused. Everybody let him down, so why should he trust them now? Jacob told Peter he would not go with him. He is way too scared of something happening to him. Peter wasn't planning on backing down. Peter eventually convinced Jacob to stay close to him. Reluctantly, Jacob followed Peter. They spotted a cave in the distance. It was definitely no ordinary cave. They went straight into the cave. This was definitely a deer cave. Peter spotted the deer in the distance. He was totally shaken. He knew he wasn't going crazy. Jacob was now totally convinced as well. He was even more scared than he was before. There was no sign of the baby. Jacob tried convincing Peter to get back to the ranger's office, to make sure they could help out as well. But Peter is extremely stubborn. Then he heard a noise. Out of nowhere, they heard crying coming out of the cave. The deer seemed to react, and it went inside the cave. Moments later, he came out and the crying had stopped. Peter now knew for sure that the baby was inside the cave. Then the deer turned his head towards Jacob. Jacob gets spotted by the deer. This is a really tense situation. Jacob did not know how to react. Peter tells Jacob to just freeze. The deer was now quickly charging toward Jacob. Peter tried to distract the deer but only seemed interested in Jacob. Jacob runs away as fast as he possibly can. He hears the deer gaining on him. The worst possible thing happens. Jacob trips. He quickly got back onto his feet and climbed into a tree. The deer tries to get Jacob out of the tree, but it seems like Jacob got to safety. This is the moment for Peter to react. Peter is all by himself now. He sees a clear path to the cave. He starts slowly walking towards the cave when he hears Jacob screaming that the deer is coming back. Without thinking, he starts running towards the entrance of the cave. He does not hear the deer anywhere close, so he knows he has some time to save the baby. Peter finally reaches the cave. It is really dark inside. Then he suddenly hears some noise from deeper inside the cave. He starts walking towards it. Then he sees something that shocks him to the core. He finally spots the baby. Peter quickly runs towards the baby, who seems unharmed at first glance. He has no time to waste. He hears noises in the distance. Peter realizes that the deer is coming back. He quickly turns off his light. He hears the deer walking around inside the cave. Peter realizes the deer has spotted him. Peter is now backed into a corner by the deer. Peter is still holding the baby. Out of nowhere, the deer seems to fall asleep. Peter realizes that the deer has been shot by some sedation darts. He then hears a whole lot of noises around him. Without realizing it, more rangers started running inside the cave to rescue Peter. Jacob had called them right before they went into the forest. But they weren't done yet. They still had no idea where the parents were from, the baby. No missing baby had been reported by the police. The rangers took the baby to the nearest hospital with the help of the police. Peter got his apologies, but he was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. They would soon uncover everything. The baby was checked at the hospital. Immediately upon arriving, a group of doctors took the baby in for inspection. Peter refused to let the baby get out of his sight. The police allowed Peter to stay with the baby. They also took a DNA sample to identify the baby. After a lot of checks, it appeared that the baby was healthy. Every hour, Peter checked if there had already been results from the lab. He heard that they took the deer in as well to inspect it. Peter had not slept for 24 hours when he finally got some news. The deer was let go back into the forest, and Peter was glad that the animal was safe. But what about the baby? Nobody was looking for it. Peter felt desperate. His wife had arrived as well and urged him to rest. Then a police captain called Peter into an office. They had determined that the deer had kept the baby safe. It was well fed, and no harm was done to the baby. They also had found out something else as well. The DNA results had come back. When the police captain told Peter the whole story, he burst into tears. Unfortunately, the parents of the baby had been found in the forest. They had apparently had a fatal car crash. After the crash, the deer took the baby in. They also could not find any family. Peter did not know what to see. Then he looked at his wife, and they both knew what had to be done. They eventually adopted the child and raised it to be their own. Peter and his wife had never been happier in their lives. Peter got his job back as a ranger and felt on top of the world. Eventually, his son became a ranger as well, just like his dad.